Welcome to Random Fandom Chats. I'm Tandra.
I'm Dee Dee.
And this is Annabeth. And here we discuss pretty much anything and everything fandom related. Mostly sci-fi, but it can be movies, books, TV, comics, videos, games.
Other fantasy related stuff. Pretty much anything that we're even remotely into. And today we're actually giving you guys our first real Star Trek episode.
Yeah, and it actually was kind of a broad topic. You guys are probably wondering what the heck it meant when we pulled out Star Trek Universe.
Since there's no TV show called Star Trek Universe.
But mostly, when we wrote that, the concept was that we would discuss just Gene Roddenberry's universe that he created for Star Trek and what we think of it.
His vision, basically, for the future.
Right, that kind of thing. Just his concepts. So, what's the first one you kind of like to talk about?
Well, I think one of the things that I really remember a lot about, or think about a lot with Gene Roddenberry's universe, is how in the future, they've eliminated, need basically for food and clothing and things like that with the Replicators, and how basically people don't really need to work in a lot of ways. People still do work, I guess, just because society basically tells them that they should. You have people in Starfleet.
Or people like to work, I think. There's some people that just enjoy it. Like Sisko's father, who cooks in the restaurant.
Right.
And things like that. I think originally, in the original Star Trek, the episodes pretty much made it clear that nobody had money. Nobody really worked. Nobody needed to work. Because
they could just replicate anything that they wanted, basically.
And in a way, it's a nice idea because I do think it helps with the concept of no war. Because if we don't have things to fight over...
True. We still have wars over things like religion and things like that, but I think that even is getting, less and less.
Right. But I also think that it is too simplistic in a way, because I think humans would get terribly bored if they had no purpose.
Yeah. So
I'm not so sure that it would work as well as the nice, bright idea.
Yeah, it works more in theory than practicality, probably.
I would love the idea of replicators being able to create enough food and clothing and other things. Because if people didn't have to work for those basic necessities in life,
then I think we would be a lot better off.
I think people would be a lot happier. Their standard of living would be a lot higher. They would work, but they would do things more that they enjoyed and maybe not work themselves to the bone just to have basic
necessities.
And a few things that they enjoy.
You would work basically more to have things that you want. You would have your basic necessities taken care of, and you would work more just to have, a nicer house, nicer possessions, things like that.
Just like you say, hobbies. Things you enjoy. Plus, you probably would tend to work at jobs you enjoyed more.
Right, because you would be able to pursue more of your dream job rather than just needing to get a job just to survive.
Right. The other thing, though, is I noticed later on in the shows, especially in Deep Space Nine, when you have the Ferengi and other things like that, people have gold-pressed platinum and money and things.
Right.
And they're spending money. And it's why would you have money other than to do things throughout the universe? I also think it's kind of a human need to own possessions and other things. And obviously in the military, they usually don't own a lot because they have to be able to pack up and move and leave. So I guess we usually just see the military branches. We don't see much of the regular.
But everyday humans
would want to own things, I think. I think they would want.
Some people tend to be less materialistic than others, of course. But I think
there's just a human need to have things that you enjoy around you. Mm-hmm. And so I do think that people would own more than maybe what they show on the show, because they do need to be pretty Spartan and maybe have a book or something they really enjoy, or a knickknack over here, or something like that.
A family album or something like that.
Right. First of all, what would you get for presents for people if nobody owned anything?
Right?
We have a friend like that. She has nothing. She gets rid of practically everything. She'll have a little mania for a short little while, but it's very little, like houses or something, and then all of a sudden she'll get rid of everything.
And it's very hard to buy her presents.
Very hard because you can't buy her anything that you think she's going to keep for any length of time, because she probably won't.
Because she doesn't give it.
She doesn't really collect anything or have anything, so it would be really hard to buy presents for people.
What fun is that? I like buying presents for people.
I know, right? So I don't know. I do think that concept is really a nice idea, though, that if people didn't have to work so hard
just for
survival and needs, that I think in general we would all be happier. And I do think it would tend to make war a little less
Well, not
common.
just war. They also talk about how crime is virtually non-existent. Like, I mean, they still talk about how there is some crime.
There were some penal colonies, and then there was people like Khan who, you know, tried to take over everything, and you know, there's people like that once in a while. I mean, you do have, and you have a few murderers here and there, and you do have a few psychotic things going on. So you do still have that, but it seems like it's a lot less.
Well, because people really seem to think that mostly crime just stems from poverty and need. But honestly, at least the way that I view crime and see it, that's not necessarily true. I mean, yeah, you have people who steal just for money because they're poor or need money or whatever, but more often you get people who just steal for just greed. They don't necessarily need to rob a bank or rob a jewelry store.
Or they like the thrill of it, or they think that, well, it's there so I can. You know, shoplifting especially. It's like, oh, well, it belongs to me now because I took it.
Or even people just like murder. It's just like, okay, yeah, a lot of times money is a motivator for murder. But
there's a whole
lot more. There, you know, you have people who just have, you know, a mental illness like serial killers.
And then there's the passion or
crimes
the anger.
of passions and things like that. So it's just like, okay, crime might go down if you eliminate the need for things like that, but it's not going to be virtually non-existent.
It's not going to be this wonderful utopian universe we would like it to be, I don't
Unfortunately.
think. Unfortunately. What other concepts do you think that he created that, you know, are interesting to think about or talk about? What are some of the other? Okay, well, like the Idic philosophy and the live long and prosper of the Vulcans. I like the Vulcan way of seeming to have respect for everybody else.
To an extent.
As long as they're the Vulcans, anyway.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't think they have much respect for other races.
Not as much as we would like. Yeah, they're a little
They kind of frown upon most other races.
Yeah, they tend to have a superiority complex just a little bit. But,
not all Vulcans.
So that concept is kind of...
I kind of always thought it was interesting, just the concept of Vulcans in general, of, you know, wanting to really downplay their emotions, or saying that they don't feel emotions, but really they just, you know, learn to control them, and they're all about logic.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, but they were a pretty passionate race. They were kind of human-like in a lot of ways.
Well, before, because they said that the reason why they decided to start suppressing their emotions was because they used to be very, you know, passion-driven and warlike, and they saw that emotions were the cause of all their conflict, basically.
And I'm not entirely certain that suppressing our emotions is a really good idea.
No, it's not. At least for humans. Maybe it'd be different, you know, with different alien physiology and things like that. So maybe it would work better for other aliens, but for humans, that's not a good idea. I think we would just end up killing each other.
Yeah, I think it'd be okay for very short periods, but then... It kind of like a boiling pot, you know, with a lid on it or something. I think we'd explode.
Well, and I always kind of wondered if Gene Roddenberry specifically put the character of Spock in there to really see how the Vulcans are really hypocritical in a lot of ways, because, okay, like, you got Spock, who's half human, and if they completely suppress all emotions and don't get married for things like love, okay, if you don't get married for love, then all that remains is getting married for status and power or whatever. So you would marry other Vulcans based on those things, status, power, arranged marriages, whatever. You know, his dad wouldn't have married a human for any other reason than love, because there would be no reason for him to marry a human, because it wouldn't improve his status or well-being.
Well, if anything, it would lower it.
Right, because people would see him as less than, because, you know, he's not a human.
So obviously it was love, or at least some sort of mutual respect, or he got something out of that relationship emotionally, regardless.
Yeah, definitely.
Regardless
whether you wanted to define it as love, he got some emotional stimuli from it that obviously he felt was important enough that he married this woman.
Right.
So Spock in and of himself is a contradictory of what the Vulcans supposedly are completely like and stand for, you know? And I've always kind of wondered if Gene Roddenberry did that on purpose.
Maybe. Yeah, he did like to talk about the human condition a lot through, you know, things like aliens. I did like how in his universe male and female and other races tended to be
always
equal.
Yeah.
At least on the human side, they were considered equal, at least
there
for Starfleet.
There was, of course,
some races who thought of them differently.
Xenophobia and things like that, but they basically made it seem like humans themselves had evolved to where things like our, inter-races, like things like, black and Asian, white and whatever.
Didn't matter what color you were, what religion you were, what
gender
race you were, didn't
whatever.
Matter. As long as you were happy and you treated everybody good, you were all okay. And that, I like that concept, and I'm glad.
And I definitely think it's something we should achieve. Strive for, definitely.
Well, I think being in the '60s and all that was almost a product of what was going on at the time, where people were wanting those things.
Gene Roddenberry was definitely the type that he really wanted his stuff to speak on social matters and speak,
definitely.
to everybody. I've heard so many stories about people, minorities who were inspired by Star Trek, and seeing even Uhura, even though she had kind of a bit role on,
but not really, because on a regular ship, a communications officer is pretty important. I mean, even though we didn't see her importance so much in the show as much as maybe we would have liked, it was an important position on a ship.
Yeah, and one of the first African American female astronauts said that she was inspired to become an astronaut because she saw her on Star Trek, and she actually got to meet Nichelle Nichols on
really
the
cool.
set of Next Generation, because they heard about this and they decided, hey, do you want to be an extra on an episode of Next Generation? She's like, yes. So then they brought Nichelle Nichols on set to meet her.
Really
and that
cool.
was really cool.
Well, I remember a story that Nichelle had always talked about, that she was wanting to quit Star Trek. She's like,
or not take the job at all.
But she was just like, what's up with this? And he's like, no, you really need to try it, and this and that. And then she found out later, she'd gotten these letters and other things from people, and she's like,
were inspired by her.
Wow, okay, maybe this is a good thing. And I think showing having Asian and black, and all these other people on the show, and all integrated and all doing things like everybody else, and I think that was probably one of the best things he probably did for
because even just it doesn't matter if we haven't achieved that yet. Seeing shows like that inspires people to say, it is possible.
Right.
It is. It doesn't matter if we achieve that right here, right now.
But if you see it as a normal everyday thing, then when you see it in real life, it doesn't seem that odd.
Yeah.
I mean, once you start seeing it in shows all the time, then you just start to learn to accept it, because it starts to become a reality.
Yeah, and that's just the way you grew up. And
right.
It's the same thing with, being raised among, people who are, more bigoted and racist and whatnot.
This reminds me of a story I just heard recently, and so I'm going to bring it up. I've been crazily watching ER lately, and Noah Wiley, one of my favorite actors, he's really great, and I happened to just watch some different little snippets of interviews and things with him, and he happened to be involved in the Human Rights League, and he was getting ready to introduce somebody, and somebody walked up to him and he said she was just really kind of just intense, and was like, what are you even doing here? And he said, well, my wife's involved in a lot of this stuff, and and I always think it's real important and everything. And he said, and he got to thinking about it more, and he's like, why, why am I here? And he told a story about how he had a couple of friends of his, like 15 years before, they'd met each other, a couple of guys, and they wanted to have a commitment ceremony, and he was sitting throughout the ceremony. It was a beautiful ceremony, and it was really wonderful, and how all the people there were going, gee, it's almost too bad that it can't be recognized by the state, okay, kind of thing. And then they kind of went on, and then at the time he was there speaking, it was a reality. They actually went and got married for real.
Oh, that's cool.
And he said it was the most awesome thing. And then he was seeing I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King. And he was all excited about it, and he wanted to show his son, who was like 8 at the time or whatever, and he's like, I want to show this to you. He goes, yeah, Dad, I know who Martin Luther King is. He goes, love it. He goes, and he showed it to him, and he's wanting to impart to him how great and how groundbreaking and what it meant and passionate and everything else. And then he was not getting through to his son. It just was not,
because
not really
for
good.
us, it's just history.
It's just reality to you that these things exist, that we can work side by side, or we can whatever. And he goes, to my daughter, you know, there isn't a world in which gay people can't get married. And to my son, there isn't a world in which, you know, black and white people can't work together. And he's like, so to them, there is no other reality. That is a reality. You know, time.
That's actually pretty cool.
Time starts when these things are possible. And so shows like Star Trek that make these things a reality and possible, then all of a sudden our children will grow up in a world in which that's a reality and not other things back in the 60s when it first started, or, you know, in the 40s, or heaven forbid even farther back. You know, they're not going to remember, you know, or even, you know, they might have a kind of slight concept of it.
Yeah, I mean, you'll learn about it in school and whatnot,
but as far as it meaning anything to them, it won't make any sense, because
that's the only reality they've known.
And I think that's awesome. And so if there's anything he probably did in his universe that I think is probably the most important thing, is that would be it.
Yeah. I would definitely say you're right. And I actually think that's a pretty decent place to end our discussion today.
So let's see what we're going to do next time. Pick a topic out of there and see what we come up with. Annabeth, which one are we going to do, baby? What do you think?
What do you think? Which one do you want?
The yellow one?
The yellow one?
Okay, we'll do the yellow one.
She's usually so much more animated than this.
General, awesome episodes from the 1910s. You know, the 1911 through...
You mean 2010s?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's going to be interesting. We're going to have to kind of dig in our heads a little bit and come up with what episodes we think are awesome in that general time frame. Okay, so some of the stuff we wrote down was kind of okay.
Yeah, it was kind of out there.
All right, so we'll see you guys next time. And if you like us, please click the like button and subscribe and tell all your friends.
Thank you.